Kai owed 3 people. He owed the butcher for 3 days of overdue debt, the neighbor for the broken fence he had knocked down while drunk last autumn, and old widow Merritt for the apartment in which he had lived for 2 years and had not paid for the last 4 months. He was 26 years old. No craft, no land, no connections. His right hand held heavy things a little worse after an old fracture that had healed incorrectly, because there had been nothing to pay for treatment with. He was not stupid. He maintained this opinion of himself with difficulty because smart people, as a rule, do not wake up in a haystack with an empty stomach 8 hours away from the nearest city. This was exactly where he found himself in the morning at the beginning of the month of red leaves. The haystack belonged to someone else. The owner of the farm drove him off even before dawn politely, but with a pitchfork. Kai walked along the road that led no one knew where, chewed the last piece of dried bread and thought that life, apparently, had decided to squeeze everything out of him before giving him at least something. Or not to give anything at all. Both options seemed equally likely. The road went into the forest. The forest began abruptly. Beyond the last field, it was as if there was a border. On one side, space, sky, cornstalks. On the other, darkness under the pines, wet earth, the smell of rot and decayed leaves. Kai entered the forest because the road went through it. There was no other road. He walked for about 20 minutes and had almost calmed down when he saw a stick by the roadside. Not just a stick. Although it was exactly just a stick. No glow, no carving, no hint of anything unusual. A sturdy branch, apparently broken off from an oak after the last storm. About shoulder length, the bark half peeled off, the wood dried out and became dense like well-finished bone. Kai stepped on it, stumbled, and almost fell. He cursed. Then he picked it up more out of anger than necessity and strode on, striking the ground with it. A useful thing, he thought. At least support on climbs. After a quarter of an hour, the forest became thicker, and after another 20 minutes, he heard a cry. Not human. More precisely, at first it was human, and then it became something wrong. A crunch, branches, and then a low growl that Kai did not know very well, but recognized at once. A wolf. He stopped. A reasonable person should have turned off the road and gone around. That was clear. A wolf is death, especially if you are alone, unarmed, and have not eaten properly for 2 days. That was exactly how a reasonable person reasoned. Kai was apparently not reasonable enough, or he simply reacted before he had time to think. He rushed toward the sound. The picture he saw was simple and bad. In a small clearing by a fallen tree stood an elderly man in a traveling cloak, with a traveling bag as well, already dropped into the mud. In front of him, 2 steps away, a gray wolf crouched. Not huge, but adult, lean, with yellow eyes. The man did not move. The wolf was not jumping yet. Kai did not think. He yelled, stepped forward, and struck the trunk of the nearest tree with the stick, a sharp, loud blow that carried through the forest like a shot. The wolf jumped aside reflex. Kai did not stop. He yelled again, ran at it, swung. The wolf bared its teeth. The blow landed on its muzzle not strong, glancing, but the wolf jumped even farther away. Kai continued yelling, hitting the ground, the trunks, the air. The wolf stood for a second, then went into the thicket. Quietly, as only wolves can. Kai stopped. His heart was beating so hard it could be heard. He lowered the stick and turned around. The elderly man stood by the fallen tree and looked at him. Then he slowly exhaled. "Are you alive?" asked Kai, the first thing that came to mind. The old man looked at him. "Thanks to you." Kai nodded. "Good." He picked up the old man's drop bag, shook off the mud, and held it out. The old man took it. "What is your name?" "Kai? Just Kai?" "For now, yes." The old man looked at him carefully again with that assessing precision that people used to reading others have. Then he put his hand into the pocket of his cloak and took out a ring. It was not a wedding ring and not just a decoration. A narrow strip of dark metal, not gold, not silver, something in between with a small blue stone that did not shine, but rather shimmered from within like water and shadow. "Take it," said the old man. Kai looked at him. "This is an expensive thing. It is worth less than life. I am not asking for payment. I know. That is why I am giving it." Kai slowly took the ring. It was heavier than it seemed. "Who are you?" he asked. "My name is Darren, Lord Darren of West Hall." The old man straightened his cloak. "And this ring is not just a decoration. If you need help from someone noble, show it. Within a radius of 3 days' travel, every noble will recognize it." Kai looked at the blue stone. Why? Because my father gave an identical ring to 11 people who pulled him out of a besieged castle. It is the sign of the Darren family, a debt that the family repays. I only hit a wolf with a stick. Darren smiled slightly. You did it when you could have not done it. That is rare. He picked up the bag, adjusted his cloak. Where are you going? I do not know yet. The road to the right leads to the highway to the city of Veller. 3 hours walk. Kai nodded. Darren went the other way. Almost at the turn, he looked back. Leave the stick if you do not mind. Why? The forest remembers people who make noise with it. The old man shrugged. Or do not leave it. It is your business. And he left. Kai looked at the stick in his hand, then at the ring, then again at the stick. He placed it by the road carefully, as if it was something more than just wood. He himself did not know why. The city of Veller was one of those places that grew on their own, without a plan. Not beautiful, not ugly, simply alive. With crooked streets, a market in the middle, the smell of leather, manure, and hot bread. With people who had too many things to do to look at strangers longer than 2 seconds. Kai entered the city with 1 ring, 1 coin that had still been found in his pocket back at the farm, and a stomach that had already stopped hurting and simply kept silent out of principled despair. At the market, he stopped by a bread stall. The coin was enough for the smallest loaf. He bought it, ate it while he walked. It became a little better. At the inn, the 3 corners, it was written in crooked letters above the door, stood a man in a leather apron and smoked a pipe. His face was boring, like that of a man who had long ago grown tired of being an innkeeper, but did not know how to do anything else. No work? Asked Kai. The innkeeper looked at him without interest. Do you know how to do anything? Carry, count, convince people to do what is useful for them. There is work in the yard, but nothing to pay with. Food and a roof. Deal? Kai worked for 3 days. Carried barrels, repaired the fence, helped in the stable. Ate normally for the first time in a long while. Slept in the hayloft better than in the field. Talked to people who came to stay. On the 3rd day, the first necessary encounter happened. At the far table in the evening sat a man who was not eating, just looking at the wall. In front of him stood an untouched dinner, a mug of beer, and a small wooden box that he held with both hands, as if something fragile. Kai was clearing the neighboring table. Bad evening, he said. The man raised his eyes, and, about 35 years old, a wrinkle between his brows, the fingers of a craftsman. Very, he answered. Dinner will get cold. I do not want it. Kai set down the tray. What is in the box? The man looked at him, then at the box. A clock, he said. More precisely, what is left of it? Yours? No, I made it for the ducal advisor. 3 months of work, the best clock I have ever made. And I broke it this morning, by accident. Dropped the box when I was carrying it to the customer. Now everything inside is shifted, several parts are broken. The advisor is waiting in fort in 2 days. The master placed the box on the table. I will not have time to repair it, even if I work all night. Kai sat opposite him. Show me. Why? Do you know how to repair clock mechanisms? No, but sometimes it is useful to look with another person's eyes. The master was silent for a while, then he opened the box. The clock was beautiful, even broken. A bronze case, a thin mechanism of small gears, most of which were shifted or bent. Kai looked. How many parts are completely broken? 3. A small spring, one of the toothed plates, and a fastening pin. Can the parts be replaced? I do not have the necessary ones here. Everything is in the workshop, half a day's ride away. Good, said Kai. What is good? I will ride to the workshop tomorrow morning and bring the parts, if you give me a horse. The master stared at him. You do not know what to take. You will write a list, you will not find it. If you tell me where everything lies, I will find it. Kai looked at him calmly. Do you want to sit here in confusion, or do you want to try? The master was silent for a long time. Then he said, I have a horse. I left it in the stable. Then write the list. Kai left at dawn. The master, his name was Urek, gave precise descriptions of 3 cupboards, 2 drawers, and 1 tin box under the workbench. Kai reached the workshop, small but neat. Behind the forge on the outskirts of the village, found everything on the list, touched nothing extra, returned an hour before noon. Urek looked at him when he entered. Found everything? Kai placed a cloth with the parts on the table. Urek began checking. Everything is exact. How did you not mix it up? The list was clear, most would have mixed it up. Kai shrugged. Yurek began to work, quickly, silently, with the concentration that comes when you finally see a way out. After 4 hours, the clock was assembled. He wound the mechanism, a quiet ticking filled the room. Yurek closed the lid. Looked at Kai. How much do you want? Nothing. That is unfair. I helped because I wanted to. No payment is needed. Yurek shook his head. Then at least take this. He opened his traveling bag and took out a knife. Not a combat one, a working one. With a bone handle, a short wide blade, and a small monogram on the side. The knife of a good master. This is my knife. I made it for myself 15 years ago. It always cut cleanly. Kai looked at the knife. Why it? Because it is the best thing I have with me. And you deserve the best. Kai took the knife. Placed it in his hand. The balance was perfect. Thank you. It is I who say thank you, answered Yurek and stood up to get ready. And if you are in Fort, come by. He left that same evening. Kai remained with the knife, the ring, and a question that was becoming louder and louder. Where, in fact, should he go next? The innkeeper settled with him honestly. 3 days of work, 3 lunches, 3 breakfasts, and a coin for the stable. Not much, but something. Kai stood at the gates of Veller and looked at the fork. To the left, back to the farms he had come from. To the right, the trade road north. Straight ahead, the road to Fort. He remembered what Yurek had said about Fort. The ducal advisor. A big person? That was hardly a reason to go there, but there was no other reason anyway. Kai went straight. The road to Fort took almost 2 days on foot. The first day passed without incident. A passing farmer with a cart took him as far as the fork. For stories, Kai knew how to tell stories. This was, perhaps, his only truly useful talent. He slept in a small roadside tavern on a bench, having agreed to clean in exchange. On the second day, the rain began. Fine, raw, one of those that do not pour but simply exist as if the air had decided to become wet without any special effort. Kai walked under a cloak that was already soaked through and thought that it would be good to have boots without a hole in the left sole. Exactly at that moment, he heard noise behind the trees. First the sound of a horse, then voices, then a short cry. Kai stopped again. Again, he thought. Thought and again went toward the sound. Behind a low hill by the road stood a carriage. One of the wheels had come off the axle broken. The carriage tilted, the horses could not move. Nearby fussed 2 servants in soaked liveries and a young man in a good traveling suit, who clearly was not used to situations where the situation could not be solved with money. The wheel, he shouted to the servants. Just put the wheel on. We cannot without a jack, they answered. Then find a jack. From where? This is a forest. Kai came closer, looked at the wheel, looked around. Several large stones by the roadside. A sturdy forked branch from a tree broken by the storm. A piece of rope at one of the servants' belt. Is there rope? He asked. Everyone looked at him. Who are you? Asked the young man. A man from the road. Is there rope? There is. Help bring the stones, large ones. The servants exchanged glances. Do it, the man threw out. Kai worked quickly. He made a primitive lever from the forked branch and 2 stacked stones, raised the carriage axle to the necessary height while the servants held it. Then guided the wheel, fixed the axle with the rope temporarily, not forever, but enough to reach the forge. 20 minutes. The young man looked at him. Have you done this before? No, then how did you know? Stone, lever, rope? This is not knowledge, this is geometry. The man was silent for a while. We need to reach Fort before dark. If you do not drive hard, you will. Are you going to Fort? Yes. The man looked at him once more. Get into the carriage. No need. I am not doing a favor. You repaired the carriage. I am dropping you off at Fort. This is an honest exchange. Kai looked at him, then nodded and got in. The man's name was Alter, the son of a minor merchant who several years earlier had married successfully and now conducted trade between Fort and the eastern cities. Not an aristocrat, but close enough to the right people to know names. On the road they got to talking. Kai did not speak much about himself, only that he was going to Fort without a specific goal. That is honest, said Alter. When there is no goal, at least you do not get disappointed. I find goals along the way. Like now? Approximately. Alter looked at him with curiosity. You are an unusual person. Just attentive. That is rare. The carriage entered Fort already by the light of torches at the gates. Fort was larger than Veller, A real fortified city with stone walls, several thousand residents, and the military garrison of the duchy. Kai got out at the gates. Alter held out his hand. Thank you. If you look for work, I keep a warehouse by the market square. Smart hands are always needed there. I will remember. They shook hands. Kai entered the city. Nightfort smelled of smoke, iron, and fresh manure. The torches cast long shadows. The guards at the inner gates looked at passers-by lazily. Kai found lodging at a small courtyard, slipped a coin to the owner, and lay down on a wooden bench by the wall. The ceiling above him was soot-stained. He thought about the ring, about the knife, about the carriage, about the stick that he had left in the forest. A strange thought came to him before sleep. Each thing had led to the next, as if the world worked by a rule that he had not yet fully understood. Stick ring, ring knife. Knife? Kai closed his eyes. In the morning, Fort was different. Alive, noisy, businesslike. The market was already working. The forge thundered. The guards changed at the gates. The smell of bread from the bakery overpowered everything else. Kai went out into the street with the knife at his belt and the ring in his pocket. First food. He found a stall with hot porridge, paid with his last coin, and ate while looking at the movement of the market. It was then that he saw a familiar face. Yurek, the clockmaker. He was walking quickly with a wooden box under his arm, obviously, already heading to the advisor. Yurek called Kai. The master turned around, saw him, was surprised. You are here too? It happened along the way. How? Carriage, wheel, lever. Yurek smirked. Sounds like you. He shifted the box. Are you going to the advisor? No reason. There is, said Yurek. Come with me. If you want. Why? The advisor needs people. He has 3 assistants. 2 have been ill for the last months. 1 is a fool. You know how to think on the move. I saw that. I am nobody. That is good. Means you have no bad reputation. Kai looked at him, then shrugged. Good. The advisor's name was Ferenc. Small, quick, bald, and restless. One of those people who are always in several conversations at the same time, and yet do not miss a single one. He met Yurek in a large workroom with windows overlooking the main square of Ford. On the table lay maps, papers, registers. The clock? He said instead of a greeting. Here, answered Yurek and opened the box. Ferenc took the clock, looked, wound it, listened to the ticking. Good. Then he shifted his gaze to Kai. Who is this? The man who helped me repair the clock, said Yurek. Are you a clockmaker? No, then what can you do? Kai thought for a second. Look at a problem from the side where it is not expected. Ferenc raised his eyebrows. That is not a profession. No, but sometimes more useful than a profession. Ferenc looked at him. Does Yurek trust you? He is a kind man, answered Kai. That is not always the same thing. Ferenc snorted. An honest answer. He returned to the papers. I have a problem right now, small but unpleasant. What kind? Asked Kai. Ferenc looked at him with surprise. The man clearly had not expected that a stranger from the street would ask questions. But he did not stop. In my register, the records of 3 deliveries have disappeared. Not physically, purely in the accounting. Someone rewrote the lines so that now the numbers do not add up. My best accountant is ill. The second does not see the error. Show me. Ferenc stopped again. Do you know how to read registers? I know how to read and count. That is usually enough. Ferenc slowly pulled out 3 sheets, placed them on the table. Kai bent over, read for about 3 minutes, then straightened. Here, he pointed to the first sheet. The date is rewritten here. The delivery from West Hall is marked as the 3rd day, but if you look at the neighboring column, there's the 5th. A gap of 2 days creates an emptiness where the second delivery is entered as supposedly the first. Ferenc leaned over. Here, Kai showed the second sheet. The sum is split into 2 payments, which separately are less than the threshold value for the senior's signature. Means someone deliberately divided the sum so as not to raise a flag. And the third? The third is simply an error, not a forgery. Ferenc looked at the sheets for a long time, then at Kai. How much do you want for this? Nothing. Are you serious? I still do not know what I want. But not money right now. Ferenc set the pen aside. Do you want work? Depends on the terms. Housing, food, a coin a week. 3 months trial. Kai thought. Good. Ferenc held out his hand. Agreed. Name? Kai? Just Kai? Enough for now. Ferenc looked at him for another second. You are a strange person, Kai. I have already been told that. The work with Ferenc was varied and strange in places, in the morning registers. Kai understood the numbers faster than expected, not because he was a born accountant, but because he knew how to see patterns. Where a number is wrong, it breaks out of the rhythm like a false note in a song. Ferenc noticed this and began giving him more difficult tasks. In the afternoon trips around the city, the advisor needed to check many things personally: warehouses, suppliers, craftsmen who worked under contract with the Duke. Kai rode with him, wrote down, observed, sometimes asked questions that Ferenc later repeated to others as his own. This did not anger Kai. He did not need glory. He needed to understand how this world worked. In the evening free time, Kai spent it in different ways. Walked around Fort, sat in the tavern, listened to conversations, became acquainted with several people. The blacksmith Orth, who made hinges for the city gates, the young herbalist Rin, who sold ointments by the market wall, and the old archivist Bon, who lived above his archive and kept account of everything that had happened in Fort over the last 40 years. Bon became important. He loved to talk, and Kai knew how to listen. Through the old man, he learned a great deal. Who owed whom in the city, who did not speak to whom, which families had influence, what the Duke lived by, and who really made decisions behind his back. And it was from Bon that Kai first truly heard about the ring of the Darren family. West Hall, said Bon when Kai showed the ring. Yes, Lord Darren gave it to me. Bon looked for a long time. Personally? Yes. You saved his life? I drove away a wolf. For him, it is the same thing. Bon placed the ring on the table and examined it carefully. This is real, he said at last. The ring of the Darren family. They give them rarely. Very rarely. What does it mean? This is not just a sign of respect, boy. This is a promissory note. A debt? The Darren family is obliged to help the one who carries this ring in one serious matter. Not a trifle serious. Kai looked at the stone. He did not tell me about this directly, because it is self-evident for people of his blood. And what does serious mean? Bon shrugged. Depends on the situation. Protection, money, surety. A word in court, a matter of life and death in the literal sense. Kai took the ring back. There it is. Stick ring. The ring weighs more than it seems. In the fourth week, Kai realized that there was a problem in Fort. Not his problem, but close enough to touch. One of the major merchants of the city mailer, owner of 3 warehouses and 2 trade routes, began to put pressure on small suppliers. Not roughly, not openly. Quietly. Slightly higher prices for renting a place. Slightly later settlements. Slightly more inconvenient terms. Kai heard this from Rin, the herbalist. He has already removed 2 sellers from the market, she said, sorting through bundles of herbs. They say he will soon take on the blacksmith Orth. Why? Because the forge stands on land that Mailer wants, Kai thought. Does Orth know? He knows. But he cannot do anything. He has no money for a lawyer, no connections with the city council. He has a forge. So what? Kai looked at the knife at his belt. Urex knife, with a monogram. And who supplies metal to Mailer, he asked. Rin thought. Usually Orth? Always. Interesting. What are you planning? I do not know yet. But something. Kai went to Orth. The blacksmith was a large man with hands that seemed able to bend horseshoes without a hammer, but his face had recently been tired. Heard about your affairs with Mailer, said Kai. Orth looked at him. This is not your business, no, but it may become profitable for both of us. The blacksmith crossed his arms. Speak. Mailer is pressuring you because he thinks you are alone. But you are not alone, you are the supplier for half the city. And so, if you stop supplying metal to his warehouses for a week, he will start getting nervous. He will find another. In a week? Kai shook his head. Not in Fort. The nearest blacksmith with the necessary volumes is Darrow, 2 days ride away. Orth was silent. And then? He asked. Then you resume supplies, but already under a new contract, with the condition that the land by the forge remains yours for at least 5 years. He will not agree. He will agree, said Kai, if he is shown that the alternative is a week of downtime, which costs twice as much. Orth thought for a long time. Do you know how to talk to such people? I have tried. If you try with Mailer, what do you want for it? Kai remembered the knife. The knife with the monogram. A good knife. A knife, he said. Make me a knife. Better than the one I have now. Orth looked at him. Is that all? For now, that is all. The blacksmith scratched the back of his head. All right, I lose nothing. Kai went to Mailer. The merchant received him not because he wanted to, because Kai came through Frank, the Duke's advisor. That was a sufficient reason not to slam the door. I represent the interest of the blacksmith Orth, said Kai. Mailer plump, neat, with the smile of a man who counts money better than he thinks about others, looked at him condescendingly. Orth does not have what I need. He does. Metal. I will find another. In how many days? Mailer stopped smiling. That is not your business. No, agreed Kai, but this is mine. He placed a sheet on the table. It was a draft, not an official document, just numbers and dates that Kai had copied from Ferentz's registers. Mailer looked at the sheet. What is this? 3 deliveries over the last 2 months in which there are small discrepancies between the declared weight and the actual weight. A trifle, but customs in Fort, as is known, looks poorly upon discrepancies. Silence. Are you threatening me? No, said Kai. I am offering to forget about these discrepancies. In exchange for the land by Orth's forge remaining his for 7 years, and the pressure on the market sellers stops. Mailer looked at him for a long time. You are not an advisor. No, then who are you? A person who knows how to read registers. A long silence. Mailer turned the paper over, looked at the numbers again. 7 years is too much. 5. Mailer was silent for a while. Good. 5. Kai stood up. And the sellers. And the sellers. Kai nodded and left. 3 days later, Orth came to him at his lodging, brought a knife. Kai took it in his hand. This was already a completely different thing. Long, straight, with a dark wooden handle and fine work along the blade, not a decoration, but a precise form. With such a knife one could shave, cut rope, defend oneself, and prepare food, and it would do each equally well. Good work, said Kai. The best I can do, answered Orth. Urek's knife was good, this one was better. Kai put Urek's old knife into his bag, hung the new one on his belt. Now you owe me, said Orth. Kai looked at him. Or I owe you. Orth laughed for the first time in several weeks, judging by how it sounded. Let it be both of us to each other. They shook hands. Ferenc noticed the changes in the city. Not immediately, but as a person who was used to looking at numbers, he noticed when something changed, not where it was expected. The market sellers no longer complain about Mailer, he said to Kai one day. Good. Mailer resumed normal metal deliveries. Also good. Ferenc looked at him. You? Kai did not answer. Kai, there was a small discrepancy in the registers. Which you found 3 weeks ago? Yes, and used. Gave Mailer the opportunity to correct a misunderstanding. Ferenc was silent for a while. That is smart. That is simple. For you, perhaps. The advisor returned to the papers again. I soon need to go to the ducal residence. To Torald. It is 3 days north. I understand. I need a person with me, not a guard ahead. Kai raised his eyes. Why? Because there will be a conversation there that requires not weapons, but understanding. Let us say several merchants want to make an agreement with the Duke about new roads. One of them is dishonest. Do you know who, I suspect? But I am not sure. You want me to look? Ferenc smiled. Exactly? Good. Kai put Darren's ring into his breast pocket, the knife on his belt. The world followed the same logic. One thing to the next. One person to the next. One city to the next. He did not yet know where the chain led, but he felt that the end was still very far away. They set out at dawn. Ferenc, 2 guards, and Kai. The carriage was better than the one he had repaired with a lever in the rain, but the road was worse. The northern highway was old, with potholes and long stretches of mud. The first day passed in conversations. Ferenc told him more about the duchy than Kai had learned from Bon. Not out of generosity, because he wanted Kai to understand the context. The duchy of Torald was middling. Not poor, not rich. With good lands in the south, weak routes to the north, and a constant headache in the form of 3 trading houses that always pulled in different directions. The Duke was an oldish man, tired, intelligent, but already not very interested in details. He trusts me a lot, said Ferenc. Sometimes too much. And is that a problem? When there are people around who want to use that trust for their own benefit, yes. Who exactly? Ferenc was silent for a while. The trading house Ven. They run the routes to the east. Good money, but they have a long history with measure and weight, which, let us say, is not always honest. And they will come to Torald? They are already there. Kai looked out the window at the forest beyond the road. What do they want to receive? An exclusive route through the northern pass. If they get it, 3 other trading houses will lose a third of their turnover. And the Duke does not see it? The Duke sees what is shown to him. Ven knows how to show things beautifully, Kai thought. And what do you need? Ferenc looked at him. I need proof, not suspicions. A concrete discrepancy that I can put on the table. That may take time. We have 3 days in Torald. Then we start with the documents. Of course, Ferenc leaned back. That is exactly why you are here. They spent the night in the roadside castle of one of the minor landowners, an old acquaintance of Ferenc. The dinner was warm, the wine not bad. At the table, Kai found himself next to an old man who introduced himself briefly, manager of the Duke's northern estates. They talked about the road, the weather, the north. Then the old man suddenly said, I heard the rings of the Darren family have been seen again. Kai did not move. Where was it heard? They say someone in Veller was walking around with one. Kai slowly took out the ring, placed it on the table. The old man looked, for a long time. Where did you get it? Lord Darren gave it personally. The old man set aside his spoon. You saved him? From a wolf. Yes? The old man looked at him with an expression that Kai could not yet fully read. A mixture of surprise, assessment, and something resembling respect. Lord Darren last gave a ring 20 years ago. I did not know. Now you know. He pushed his plate away. Are you going to Torald? Yes. If there are problems, the old man leaned a little lower. Say Lord Darren's name. In the ducal court, it opens the necessary doors. Kai nodded. Thank you. Not me. Thank the stick. Kai raised his eyes. The old man smiled. You started everything with the stick, did you not? Torald was another world. Not just larger, differently arranged, stone walls in 3 rows, towers at the corners, streets wider, people better dressed. A different smell, not market and forge, but leather, ink, and expensive tobacco. Power smells exactly like that. Kai felt it at once. Ferenc stopped at the house he kept for visits. Small, quiet, with guards outside. Tomorrow morning, an audience with the Duke, he said. Today, rest. When will Ven's people arrive? Already here. I saw their carriage at the gates. Good. Good? It means they have already had a night in Torald. They have had time to talk to whom they needed. Ferenc frowned. That is bad. Not necessarily. It means we know that we need to look for traces of these conversations. Kai went up to his room. Torald burned beyond the window. A large city. Many people, many doors. He lay down and thought about the chain. Stick, ring knife, better knife, road north Torald. What next? He did not know. But he was already beginning to feel something here would be larger than everything previous. The Duke received them in a large hall. Not in the throne room in the workroom. A long table, windows to the north, a fireplace. The man in the chair by the table was old, with heavy hands and a face in which there had once been much strength, and now only the habit of it remained. The Duke of Torald was named Bren. Beside him sat 2. One trade advisor, whom Kai immediately identified as his own, Ferenc's type, a paperman, honest by habit. The second man beside the Duke, young, with calm hands and a too neat face, looked at Ferenc without much interest, and then shifted his gaze to Kai, and lingered. It was a second, no more. But Kai noticed. The stranger fixed something inside. Not a name, not a face status. Determining who the person beside the advisor was and how dangerous he was. Kai did the same. The stranger's name turned out a little later was Kesser, representative of the trading house Ven in Torald. Not the head, not the owner. An intermediary. But one of those intermediaries who in the end turn out to be more necessary than the owners. The Duke spoke unhurriedly. Ferenc, you arrived later than I expected. The road, Your Grace. The northern highway requires repair. It does, agreed Bren. Like many other things. He slid his gaze over Kai. Who is this? My assistant, said Ferenc. New. A good head. Name? Kai, answered Kai himself and bowed evenly, not deeply, not shallowly. Bren looked at him for a second. Young. It can be useful, Your Grace. Something twitched at the corner of the Duke's lips, not a smile, but its predecessor. Sit, he said. The conversation lasted an hour. Ference reported on the state of Fort's trade registers, on the situation at the market, on the logistics of deliveries. Kessler listened and almost did not interfere, only sometimes asked a question, short and precise like a needle. Kai listened to both. Ference to understand what he was saying, Kessler to understand what he was thinking. And here is what he noticed. Every time Ference named a number, Kessler asked a clarifying question. Not because he did not know the answer, because he wanted the number to sound twice. He created in the Duke's head a feeling of instability. Here one speaks, here another asks again means there is doubt. Clever. Kai was silent the whole hour. Just before the end of the meeting, the Duke turned to him. You were silent. I listened, Your Grace. And what did you hear? Kai thought for a second. That the northern route through the pass is indeed important, and that everyone at this table has their own understanding of the word important. Bren looked. Kessler changed almost imperceptibly. You are impudent for an assistant, said the Duke, but without anger, only observant. Bren snorted. Tomorrow there will be a full meeting. All the houses come. They went out. In the corridor, Ference took Kai by the elbow and quietly said, Never do that again in front of the Duke without warning. Understood. Although Ference was silent for a while, you hit the mark. That evening, Kai did not rest. While Ference met with old acquaintances, Kai walked around Torald. Not simply walking, watching. Torald was a readable city if one knew where to look. Big money leaves traces. Who eats together? Who bows to whom first? Whose competitors' servants stand at whose doors? Kai saw Kessler at a closed tavern by the northern gates. He was talking to two people. Kai did not come close. But close enough to see one of the two was a man in the clothes of a city scribe. Not a guest one, not a commercial one, of the city archive. That was interesting. Why would a representative of a trading house meet with an archive scribe on the eve of a trade meeting? The answer was simple. Documents. Either he wants to get something he does not have, or he wants to remove something that gets in the way. Kai stood for a little while longer, then left. In the morning, it would be necessary to act quickly. He returned to Ference late in the evening. He was sitting with papers. Found anything? Possibly. I need access to the city archive of Torald. Ference raised his eyes. That is not simple. Easier for the Duke's advisor than for me. Ference was silent for a while. What are you looking for? Records about routes through the northern pass for the last 2 years? Especially documents about passage rights. You think there is something unclean there? I think Kessler met with an archive scribe today. Ference put down the pen. That is already concrete. Yes, good. I will write a note to the archivist. But you will only have the morning. That will be enough for me. The archive of Torald smelled of old paper and dampness. The room was large, the shelves high, the light weak. The archivist, to whom Ference had sent a note, met Kai with the look of a person who had been torn away from something important. Routes of the Northern Pass, he said, already walking between the shelves. For 2 years? Yes, and passage rights. Those are different folders. Good. The archivist brought 2 stacks. An hour, he said. No more. Kai nodded and sat down. He read quickly. Not everything in a row looked at the structure. Where the dates were, where the signatures, where the sums, where one did not match another. After 20 minutes, he found the first thread. The passage right through the Northern Pass had been registered to the trading house Ven, but not now. Not yesterday. 3 years ago. Temporarily for a term of 1 year. The term had long expired, but in the register of the current year there was an entry as if the right still applied. Kai turned the page. The entry was new. The ink slightly lighter than the others, not old. Added later, by another hand. He found more. A second document about the pass tax. There the sum had been understated by half. The signature was illegible. A third about the quantity of cargo. A number that in the passage register did not match the customs register. Kai copied everything onto a small sheet, then returned the folders to the archivist. One question, he said. The man raised his eyes. Did anyone come yesterday evening? The archivist fell silent for a second. Why are you asking? Because some entries look fresh for documents 3 years old. The archivist looked at him for a long time, then quietly said, I was paid. A lot? Enough. Now you need to choose, said Kai. Continue staying silent or tell the advisor who paid and what he asked to rewrite. That is dangerous. Staying silent is more dangerous. When everything comes out, and it will come out, you will be the scapegoat. The archivist was silent for a long time, then nodded. Come with the advisor afternoon. Kai stood up. Thank you. He left the archive into morning Torald, the knife on his belt, the ring in his pocket, the sheet with notes in his sleeve. The chain continued. The hall for trade meetings in the Duke's residence was designed to impress. High ceilings, a long table of dark wood, a portrait of the Duke's grandfather on the wall. The windows overlooked the inner courtyard where guards walked. 8 people sat at the table. 3 represented the trading houses, including Kesser from Ven. 2 were the Duke's advisors. 1 military commandant who had come according to protocol and clearly wanted to leave as soon as possible. Ferenc, and Bren himself at the head of the table. Kai stood by the wall. Not at the table, that was correct. A person by the wall sees everything and seems smaller than he is. The conversation began with formalities, Ferenc reported. The representatives of the houses spoke in turn. Kesser was the last of the 3 and spoke longer than anyone. He had a good speech. Not showy convincing. Numbers, routes, prospects, benefits for the duchy. He spoke in such a way that it seemed obvious. Ven was the right choice for the Northern Pass. Bren listened, then asked, "Does anyone have objections?" Ferenc opened the folder. There is a small question about the documents. Kesser looked at the folder. Which one exactly? The passage right through the pass that Ven uses as a basis, it expired 2 years ago. This is an error in the archive, Kesser said instantly. Already corrected. Yes, said Ferenc. Corrected yesterday evening. The archive scribe confirmed it this morning. Silence. Kesser's face did not change. Re-registration of rights is an ordinary procedure. Rewriting them retroactively is not, answered Ferenc. Bren slowly turned his head toward Kesser. Explain. Your Grace, this is administrative negligence? Kesser, yes, explain. The Duke's voice became quieter. It was worse than a shout. Kesser opened his mouth and then Kai stepped away from the wall. If you allow, Your Grace. Everyone looked at him. Bren nodded. Kai placed the sheet on the table. 3 discrepancies. First, the passage right, expired and rewritten retroactively. Second, the pass tax understated by half for the last 2 years. Third, the volume of cargo in the passage register does not match the customs records. He spoke calmly, not accusing listing. Each separately is explainable. Together, it is a system. Kesser looked at him. Who are you, a person who reads registers? Answered Kai. Kesser shifted his gaze to Ferenc. This is a provocation. The documents were corrected in a legal way. Through the archive scribe who was paid, said Ferenc. Who confirmed it? Silence again, this time longer. Bren looked at the table, then raised his eyes. Kesser. You will leave Torald by tomorrow, Your Grace. The hearing on the documents will be held without you. This is a violation of the rights of the House Ven. This is a decision, said Bren coldly. Leave. Kesser stood up, looked at Kai for a long time and without friendliness. Kai met his gaze. Kesser left. After the meeting, Bren detained Ferenc and Kai. The others left. The Duke stood by the window. You found this, he said, not asking. Yes, answered Kai. In one morning, the archive was open. Ferenc said that you have been working for him for less than 2 months. That is so. Bren turned around. Where are you from? From far away. That is not an answer. A man without a place, Your Grace. I go where there is work. Bren looked at him with the same expression the archivist had had in the morning, assessing. Attentive. What do you want? Nothing specific yet. You are lying. Kai allowed himself a second of silence. I want to understand how big things are arranged. The world, money, power? Why? Because I do not want to be at the bottom all my life. Bren grinned. Truly, for the first time since the meeting. Honestly, he said, I try. Ferenc. The advisor stepped forward. Your Grace, your man stays in Torald for another 3 days. I have work for him. Ferenc looked at Kai. Kai nodded. Good. The work the Duke gave was simple in form and complex in meaning. Bren wanted to understand how deep Ven's connection sat in his city, not through interrogations and searches through conversations. I do not want noise, he said to Kai the next morning. Noise makes people cautious. I need to know who talked to Kesser and about what. That will take time. 3 days. I will try. This is not a request, Bren clarified. This is an assignment. Kai began to work. The method was simple, not to ask directly, but to stand in the right place and listen. Torald was large, but its trading life passed through 3 points: the market square, the large tavern by the gates, and a small club for merchants, where people were admitted by recommendation. He got into the club through Alter. Exactly so. Alter, the same merchant with the carriage and the broken wheel, turned out to be in Torald on trade business. Seeing Kai by the market square, he stopped. You? Here? And you? Alter laughed. The world is small, or the roads are long. Depends how you look. I need to get into the merchant's club. Why? Work. Alter looked at him. For the advisor? For the Duke. Alter blinked. You are growing quickly. I am trying. Good. I can introduce you, but you will be my guest there. That means if something goes wrong... Nothing will go wrong, said Kai. I only need to listen. Alter shook his head. All right, in the evening. The merchant's club was a quiet place. Good wine, soft armchairs, conversations in low voices. People who know how to make money often do not like noise. They need silence in which the right words can be heard. Kai sat with Alter in the corner, drank slowly, listened. In 2 hours he heard enough. 3 merchants mentioned Ven in a context that said they knew about the plan. One of those who traded through the past spoke about the soon change of rules with the confidence of a man who had been promised something in return. Kai did not write anything down in front of everyone. He memorized. They went out late. On the street, Alter asked, "Found what you were looking for?" "Yes, seriously?" "Enough." Alter was silent for a while. "You know how to make complicated things simple." "No, I just go where I need to." How do you understand where you need to go? Kai thought. I look where people behave not as they should. That is usually where the needed thing is. Alter looked at him for a long time. Kai, have you ever thought about trade? No, think about it. You have something that is worth a lot. What? You understand people faster than they manage to understand themselves. Kai did not answer, but he remembered. On the 3rd day, he brought Bren a list. Not accusations, observations, names, conversations, contexts. Who knew, who suspected, who simply hoped. The Duke read silently, then set it aside. You were not wrong even once? I do not know. I did not check every fact. But the patterns are precise. How do you know the difference between a fact and a pattern? A fact is what happened. A pattern is why it happened exactly so, and not otherwise. Bren looked. You are smart. Sometimes. Do not be modest. It is irritating in smart people. Kai grinned. Good. What do you want for these 3 days? You have already asked. I am asking again. Because now you have earned the right to ask for something specific. Kai thought for several seconds. A letter. What kind? In your name. Simple that Kai, assistant to advisor Ferenc, performed work for the Duke of Torald and proved himself reliable. Bren looked. Is that all? For now, yes. Why do you need a letter? For the future. The Duke looked at him for a long time, then took paper, a pen, and wrote. Put his seal on it. Held it out. A smart man, he said. Such letters open doors. I know, and does not ask for gold, only paper. Gold is spent, answered Kai. Paper with the right seal lasts longer. Bren looked at him for another second, then did what Kai had not expected. Ferenc. The advisor stepped forward. Your Grace, I am taking your man. Ferenc opened his mouth. For how long? Permanently, if he agrees. Kai did not move. To what position? For now, internal observer, without an official title, without an open position. The same work as here, but on a larger scale. What does that mean? It means that you will see what no one except me should see, and report only to me. Kai thought. Ferenc was silent. I am not of noble birth, said Kai. I know. I have neither land nor name. I know that too. Then why? Bren answered simply. Because you have something better. You see people. Kai looked at the Duke. At a man who was tired of those who saw only profit. At a man who needed someone who saw the truth. Good, said Kai. 6 months passed. Kai lived in Torald, officially assistant to the advisor on trade affairs. Unofficially, the Duke's eyes where it was inconvenient for the Duke to look himself. There was a lot of work. After the Ven affair, Bren began looking at his own duchy differently, with the suspicion of a man who had realized for the first time how much happened without his knowledge. And Kai became the instrument of this new gaze. He traveled through cities, talked with merchants, managers, craftsmen, found discrepancies where others saw order, and gradually began to understand one important thing. The duchy was held together not by the strength of the army, and not by the wealth of the treasury. It was held together by trust, by the fact that people believed the system worked honestly. As soon as this trust cracked, everything else began to wobble. Kai thought about this a lot, and began to understand that knowledge by itself is a tool, but a tool without the right to use it is just heavy metal. Something else was needed. This something came from the north. One morning a messenger arrived in Torald. Not an ordinary one. Dressed in the colors of the family Kai knew blue and gray of West Hall. Lord Darren. The messenger handed Kai a sealed letter. He opened it. The handwriting was old, a little trembling. Kai, I have heard many good things about you since you left our forest. If you are in Torald and I am sure you are come to West Hall, there is a conversation that cannot be held through letters. Do you still have the ring? You will soon need it not as a decoration. Darren Kai read the letter twice, folded it. In the evening went to Bren. I need 3 weeks. Where? To West Hall. Bren raised his eyes. Those are Darren's lands. Yes, why? He asked me to come. Bren looked. Do you have Darren's ring? Yes, he gave it personally? Yes. A long silence. Good, said the Duke. Go. But I want to know what the conversation was about. You will know. Kai left, the ring in his pocket, the knife on his belt, the Duke's letter behind his breast. In his head, 6 months of understanding how power works from the inside. The chain stretched again. West Hall stood on a hill above a small river. Not a castle in the full sense, a fortified house. With towers at the corners, thick walls, and gates that, judging by their appearance, had last been barred about 30 years ago. The place was alive, not military. Kai arrived on horseback, bought a horseback and fort on the Duke's salary. The gates opened without questions. A servant led him through the courtyard into the main hall. Lord Darren sat by the fireplace. He was older than in the forest, although less than a year had passed. Or Kai simply looked differently now. Kai, he said. Lord Darren, sit. Kai sat. A servant brought tea. Not wine, not a hot dinner tea. As for a long conversation. I have heard about you, said Darren. What exactly? That you helped Ference expose Ven. A small matter. Small for Ference, very much not for Bren. Darren took the cup. For me, all the more. Why? Because Ven worked against several families at once, including against West Hall. Kai was silent. Did you know this? Suspected, but not firmly. Now you know. Darren put down the cup. Kai, I want to talk about the ring. I remember what it means. Good. Then tell me, are you ready to use it? That depends on what you ask in return. Darren looked at him. I am not asking for anything. I am offering. What? A name. Kai did not answer. A family name, Darren clarified. Ours. West Hall. A long silence. The fire crackled in the fireplace. Why? Kai finally asked. Because I have no heirs. 2 sons died. My daughter is married far away and she is happy there, and I will not pull her here. The old man looked at the fire. But the land remains. The title remains. And someone must take them. I am nobody. You are not nobody. You are a man who saved my life and since then has done such things that half the duchy is already talking about them. Adoption requires the Duke's consent. Bren owes me a favor, an old one, personal. He will give consent. Kai looked into the fire. Thought. This was not what he had expected. Not money, not a position. A name, land. If I take the name of West Hall, he said slowly, I will take the obligations too. Yes, the family's debts, enemies, allies. Yes, and responsibility for the people on your land. That is the most important thing, said Darren quietly. That is exactly what makes a man of a noble family, not blood. Kai was silent for a long time, then took out the ring, placed it on the table between them. The blue stone shimmered in the firelight. I need time to think. Darren nodded. As much as you need. And one more question. Ask. Why me specifically? You saw me once, in the forest, with a stick. Darren looked at him. Exactly why. That is not an answer. No, it is an answer, said the old man. Most people at that moment would have passed by, not out of cowardice, simply because it was not their business, not their wolf, not their problem. You stopped. Without calculation, without benefit. It could have been stupidity. Sometimes stupidity and honesty look the same. Darren took the ring. The difference is that in an honest man it becomes a habit, and in a foolish one it does not. Kai looked at him. I will give an answer in the morning. A servant escorted him to a room. The night was quiet. Stars in the window above the river. Kai lay and thought. The stick in the forest, the ring, the knife, the better knife, the carriage, the registers, the archive, the letter, and now the name. Each step led to the next. He had planned none of them. He simply looked carefully, did what seemed right, and went where the road opened. Here it is, the road. Opened again. Before sleep, he thought of something else. If he took the name of Westhall, this was no longer just work for the Duke. This was land, people, responsibility. This was already another chain longer, heavier. But perhaps exactly because of that it was needed. In the morning he returned to the hall. Darren sat in the same place. The ring lay on the table. Yes, said Kai. Darren nodded, slowly. Without triumph, with the tired relief of a man who had long been waiting for the right word. Good. He took the ring and held it back out to Kai. Now this is yours again. But for a different reason. Kai took the ring, put it on his finger. For the first time. The next 2 weeks were filled with papers. It turned out to be more difficult than Kai had expected. Adoption into a noble family required a document from the family, the signature of the local church administrator, confirmation from 2 noble witnesses, and most importantly, the Duke's approval. The witnesses were found quickly. 2 neighboring landowners who had known Darren for decades came without unnecessary words. One of them, a gray-haired man named Tardo, looked at Kai for a long time. You are the one who dealt with Ven? In part. I heard. Tardo signed the paper. Welcome to the neighbors. The church administrator, elderly, cautious, asked questions. Many. Some uncomfortable. Were you baptized? Yes. Do you believe? Enough. That is not an answer. I believe that good deeds do not happen by themselves. The administrator looked. It can be accepted. He put his seal. Bren remained. Kai rode to Torald himself. Darren wanted to go with him, but Kai asked him to stay. This must be my conversation, he said. The old man agreed. Bren received him that same day, read the documents, was silent for a minute. Darren wants to give you Westhall. Yes, do you understand what that means? I understand. Land, people, taxes, roots, disputes with neighbors, obligations to me as Duke. I understand. You are 26 years old. Age is not an objection, Your Grace. Bren looked at him. No, not an objection. He took the pen. Signed, put the large ducal seal. Held out the document. Kai of Westhall, he said. It sounds still unfamiliar. You will get used to it. Bren stood up. And know this. I expect from you the same as what you did for me here. Eyes in the right places. Honest reports. Without politics. Of course. Go. Kai left. In the corridor he stopped. The document in his hand. The Duke's seal. A name. He remembered that morning a year and a half ago, the haystack. Empty stomach, 3 debts, broken hand that held heavy things poorly. And the stick on the road. He returned. The servants met him already differently, not as a guest. As the master, even if future. Darren sat in the same chair. Kai placed the document on the table. The old man took it. Read it. Put it back. Good. You do not ask how it went? It is visible on your face. Kai sat. What now? Now I teach you, said Darren. Land, people, contracts, neighbors, history, everything that must be known. How much time? As much as I have. The old man looked at the fire. I am not a young man, Kai, but while I live, I teach. Understood. Silence. Then Darren said, You know that this is not the end of the chain? Kai raised his eyes. What do you mean? You took a name. That is a big step. But Westhall is not the summit. I know. What comes next do you understand yourself? Kai thought. Land needs people. People need trade. Trade needs the duchy. The duchy needs... He stopped. Finish it. The duchy needs something larger? Darren nodded. Exactly. He leaned back in the chair. There are conversations, old quiet ones. About the duchies north of us having long wanted things differently. Something larger than a duke and his advisors? A kingdom? Or something similar? And you think that I am not thinking anything yet, Darren interrupted. I am observing and telling you, the chain is longer than it seems. Kai looked into the fire. Thought about the stick, about how everything had begun with a piece of wood on a forest road. Did you know? He asked. When you gave the ring, did you already see farther then? Darren smiled. I saw a man who did not pass by. And that was enough? For a beginning, yes. After 3 weeks of study under Darren's guidance, Kai understood. Land is not just fields and walls. It is a living system, where every person on it is part of the balance. He rode around the villages of Westhall every day, got to know the people, looked at what worked, what did not. Saw the mill on the river was weak, it needed repair. The bridge by the southern village was rotten. The pastures in the east could be expanded if an agreement was made with the neighboring landowner. Simple things. But trust is made up precisely of simple things. One morning in the forge of Westhall Small, by the stable, Kai got into conversation with the blacksmith, old with heavy hands named Gore. I need a good knife, said Kai. You have a good one, said Gore, nodding at his belt. I see. I need another. Not combat and not working. One that is given when people want to say something without words. Gore looked at him. A gift? Symbolic. For whom? Kai thought. I do not know yet, but the time will come, I know for certain. Gore nodded. Such a knife takes a long time to make. About 3 weeks. Make it. What on it? Nothing unnecessary, only the sign of Westhall, and steel good enough for it to outlive the one to whom I give it. Gore grinned. I will make it. The knife was ready in 3 weeks. Kai took it in his hand. The balance was ideal, the blade even and thin. The handle of dark wood with the silver sign of Westhall. He put Orth's old knife into his bag, hung the new one. Different again. The chain went on. A month later, a letter came. Not from Bren and not from acquaintances. From an unfamiliar name, Lord Kever, owner of lands north of Westhall. A short letter. I have heard of the new Lord of Westhall. If you are the person they speak of, come. There will be a conversation useful for both. Darren read it. Kever, he said thoughtfully. Do you know him? I do. A cautious man. Speaks little. If he called, then there is something specific. Should I go? Certainly. Why might he have called? Darren was silent for a while. Kever has long been thinking about what I mentioned. About something larger than a duchy. Kai looked at the letter. He wants to talk about it with me? He wants to look at you. First, then he will decide whether it is worth talking. When should I go? As soon as possible. Kai folded the letter, the knife on his belt, the ring on his finger, the Duke's letter behind his breast, the new knife with the crest of Westhall, a name, land, people, and now the road north to a man who was thinking about something larger. Kever's lands were northern, another landscape darker, heavier. Thick forest gave way to open, windswept fields. Winter here began earlier and ended later. Kever's castle was a real castle, not a fortified house like Westhall. With real walls, a real tower, and guards who looked serious. Kai met Lord Kever in the library. This was unexpected. A man of about 50, short, with a neat beard and hands that were more likely to turn the pages of books than hold swords. But his gaze was sharp, like that of a person who was used to thinking and had not forgotten how to do it. Kai of Westhall, he said without standing. Lord Kever. Sit. Kai sat. You are not noble by birth? No. Darren gave you a name. Yes? Bren approved. Yes. In a year and a half, you have gone from an unknown man to a lord. Kai did not answer. How? Asked Kever. I went where it opened. Kever looked. That sounds accidental. No. Attentive. The difference? An accidental person goes where he is carried. An attentive one sees where it opens and chooses. Kever was silent for a while. A good answer. He stood and went to the window. Do you know what is happening in the north? I have heard hints. Not hints. Soon it will become reality. What exactly? Kever turned around. 3 northern duchies are thinking about unification. Not just an alliance, a real unification. With unified governance, unified rules, a unified tax. A kingdom. Or something close to it. The name is secondary. And you? I am for it. But I have no weight without the support of my neighbors. West Hall? West Hall is small, said Kever honestly. But West Hall is Darren, and Darren is respect. And you are a new man without old debts. And that is sometimes more valuable than an ancient name. Kai thought. What do you want from me specifically? I want to know what you will tell Bren when you return. Bren is a duke, not an ally of the northern ones. Those are different things. For now, yes. Later we will see. You want me to become a bridge. I want you to be yourself, Kever corrected. Bridges break. People with a good head do not. Kai looked at him. Give me time. How much? As much as is needed to understand where this is going. Kever nodded. That is reasonable. Stay for a few days. Look at the north with your own eyes, then decide. Kai spent 4 days in Kever's lands. Rode, watched, talked with people. The northern lands were different from West Hall and Torald. Heavier, poorer in appearance, but stronger in character. People here worked differently, without haste, without adornments, with that calm stubbornness that people used to long winters have. On the second day, he met another person, a woman. She was riding along the road from the northern settlement in a man's cloak, with a bow behind her back and the face of a person who was not used to explaining where she was going. They met at a bend in the road. Kai reined in his horse. So did she. Kai of West Hall, she asked first. Yes, I have heard of you. What exactly? That you know how to think. That is not rare. Among men it is rare, she answered without malice, with the straightforwardness that people have when they grew up, without the need to lie politely. Who are you, Reyna? Manager of Kever's eastern estate. Manager? Yes. Kever says women count debts better. She smirked slightly. I agree with him. Kai looked at her. Do you know why Kever called me? I know, and what do you think about it? Reyna did not answer at once. I think unification is useful for people, but dangerous for those who are used to holding power in one pair of hands. So you support it? Depends on who stands at the head. She moved her horse. For now, I do not know whom to look at. She rode on. Kai followed her with his eyes, then rode back to the castle. The next chain was already forming in his head. Kai returned to West Hall a week later. Darren was waiting. He listened silently for a long time without interrupting, then said, Kever is a smart man, but he is rushing. Why? Because he is already many years old. He wants to see this in his lifetime. Is that bad? No, but haste in such matters makes mistakes. Kai nodded. What do you think of the idea itself? Darren was silent for a long time. I think it is inevitable. Sooner or later it will happen. The only question is how and who. Who will stand at the head? Exactly. Kai looked at the fire. I am not ready for this. Not yet, Darren agreed. But you are moving faster than most prepare in an entire lifetime. Do you believe that it could be me? The old man looked at him. I believe that the man who stopped in the forest because of an unfamiliar old man can become the one people trust. And power? Power is simply a consequence. When people trust, power comes by itself. Kai was silent. What should I do now? Do what you have done. Go where it opens. Look carefully. Do not rush. The chain continues. Always, said Darren, as long as you move forward. The fire crackled. The blue stone of the ring shimmered on his finger. The first snow was falling outside the window. The next thread came unexpectedly. As always. A week after returning, Kai was sorting through Darren's old papers in the library, systematizing contracts, registers, letters. Boring work, but necessary. In the very bottom drawer of the desk, he found a small object. A seal. Not a ring, precisely a seal. A metal stamp with an engraving that he did not recognize at once. Not the crest of West Hall, something else older, simpler. 3 lines in a circle. He took it and went out to Darren. What is this? The old man looked, and for the first time an expression appeared on his face that Kai had not seen before. Something between surprise and relief. I thought I had lost it, said Darren quietly. What is it? The seal of the Northern Council, the old one. The one that existed before the duchies went separate ways. Kai looked at the 3 lines in the circle. Is this real power? This is real history, Darren corrected. But history matters if it is reminded correctly. To whom? To those who now want to unite the North. This seal is proof that such a unification already existed. That it is not a new idea, but an old one. That it is a return. Kai held the seal in his hand. A small metal circle, but with the right history heavier than the ring. Is this the next step? He asked. Darren looked at him. This is the next object in your chain, said Darren. Kai looked at him. You knew about the chain? I saw it, since that day in the forest. And did not say why? Darren shrugged. A person who knows how to see for himself does not need explanations. It is only necessary sometimes to place the next door before him. Kai looked at the seal. Did you deliberately put it in the bottom drawer? No, Darren said honestly. I really thought I had lost it. Some things are found when they are needed. That is not wisdom, it is simply life. Kai closed his fingers around the seal. The metal was cold, heavy, old. Tell me about the Northern Council. Darren leaned back in the chair. Sit down. It is a long story. The Northern Council existed 80 years ago. Not as an official body, as an agreement between 7 landowners of the Northern lands who were tired of constant small wars among themselves. They gathered one winter in a neutral place, agreed on borders, trade rules, and joint defense, signed a document, sealed it with a seal that had been made specially. 3 lines, the 3 roads that connected their lands. The circle, an obligation not to break the connection. The council lasted 23 years. Then one of the founders died, his son turned out to be a man with other interests, and everything gradually fell apart. Not through war, through oblivion. Does the document of that gathering still exist? Asked Kai. It should, in Caver's archive. His great-grandfather was one of the 7. And does he know about this? He knows. That is exactly why he raises the topic of unification, not as a new idea, but as the restoration of an old one. It is easier to sell to people. And the other 6 families? 3 still exist. 2 died out. 1 became part of Torald. So 3 families with history and a seal are a foundation. A foundation, Darren agreed. But not enough. What else is needed? A person whom those not from these families will believe. New lands, new voices? Because a council of 3 old names will look like a club for aged lords. And not like real power. Kai looked at the seal. You are thinking about Bren. I am. Bren is not from the north. Torald is a central duchy. Exactly. If Bren joins, this is no longer a northern club. This is a step towards something real, and you think I can talk to Bren about this? Darren looked at him for a long time. You have already spoken to him about things few would have dared to say. This is different. No, this is the same. Just on a larger scale. Kai held the seal and thought. I need time, he said. As much as you want. But not too much, Darren added more quietly. I am not a young man. Winter came honestly, not harsh, not mild normal for these places. Snow that lay evenly, frost that held but did not press. Short days, long nights. Kai used this time. Not for big plans, for small, concrete things. The mill on the river was repaired by midwinter. He found a master through Orth the blacksmith and Fort knew people in several cities, and through 2 letters the right man came. The work took 3 weeks. The mill now ground twice as fast. The bridge by the southern village was renewed by local carpenters Kai paid from his own money, not from the land's treasury. A small sum, but the right gesture. The pastures in the east, this turned out to be more interesting. The neighboring landowner with whom an agreement needed to be made was a man named Vald. Elderly, stubborn, with a good memory for grievances, his father had once quarreled with the previous owner of Westhall over a disputed stream. Kai came to him without warning. Vald came out to the gates with the face of a man who expected nothing good. Kai of Westhall. Vald? Why? I want to talk about the pastures. The pastures are mine. I know. I want to rent, not take away. Vald looked. Darren always wanted to take them away. I am not Darren, said Kai simply. A short silence. Come in, Vald said finally, with the look of a man who was doing a favor but was curious. They talked for an hour. Kai offered honest terms. Not a low price, a fair one. And added one thing. He was ready to repair the old watering place on their border, which was inconvenient to both, but neither wanted to repair first. Vald was silent for a long time after that, then said, You know about the watering place? I saw it on the road, and immediately offered, because it is useful to both. Vald shook his head. You are a strange lord. I have been told. Good. Deal. They shook hands. Vald walked him to the gates. One question, he said at the end. Ask. Are you in Westhall for long? Kai thought. Westhall is now my home, but my roads are long. Vald nodded. That is an honest answer. In the middle of winter, a letter came from Reyna, not through Kever directly. Short, Lord Kever is gathering people at the end of the Red Moon. He wants to see you, I do too. The last two words were added in different ink, as if the decision to write them had come later. Kai read the letter. Then again, set it aside, went to Darren. Kever is convening a meeting at the end of winter. I know, I received one too. Will you go? No, too long a road for old bones. Darren looked at him. You will go for both of us. As your representative? As the Lord of West Hall. This is now your place, not mine. Kai nodded. Take the seal? Darren was silent for a while. Yes, I think it will be useful. Before leaving, Kai spent the evening in the library. He read not documents and not registers history. Those books that Darren had collected all his life, about how alliances were built, how they fell apart, where people made mistakes, where they went right. One phrase stuck in him. It had been written by a nameless chronicler 100 years ago, describing the unification of two small counties. Alliances are held together not by paper and not by a seal. They are held together by each participant seeing himself in it better than without it. When that feeling disappears, no document will help. Kai closed the book, went to sleep. The snow outside the window was falling evenly. Kever's castle at the end of winter looked different than on the first visit. The courtyards were filled with horses and servants. Smoke rose from several chimneys at once. The guard at the gates had been doubled. More people had come than Kai expected. 8 lords and their representatives. Plus 3 people he had not seen before dressed differently. Northerners with an accent and manners different from the southern ones. Reyna met him at the gates. This was unexpected. You came to meet me? Asked Kai. No, I am checking the horses in the stable. It just happened to coincide. Kai grinned. Who are the 3 strangers? Envoys from the far north. Lands beyond the mountain range. Reyna lowered her voice. Kever invited them without warning the others. Is this a surprise? This is pressure. He wants to show that if the local lords do not come to an agreement, the far north will come to an agreement with someone else. Separately. Kai understood. A smart move or a risky one. The difference? If people feel driven into a corner, they will refuse on principle even against their own benefit. Kai looked at her. You think like him? No. I think about what will go wrong, answered Reyna calmly. The meeting began in the Great Hall after dinner. Kever opened it simply and quickly. You all know why you are here. I will not speak long. The North is losing strength in parts. Each duchy by itself is good for pride and bad for life. Together it is different. Several voices objected at once. An old lord named Mir Grey-haired with heavy hands, master of a large land to the west, said, We have heard this before. What has changed? This has changed, said Kever. He nodded to a servant. A document lay on the table. Old, yellowed, with 3 lines and a circle on the seal. Mir looked. The Northern Council. Restored, said Kever. Not new. The same one. Kai looked at the document and understood. Kever had prepared a copy in advance. He must have received the seal from Darren beforehand, or he had his own. The hall buzzed. Some spoke louder. Others were silent, thinking. The envoys from the far north sat by the wall and listened. Then one of the lords, Selt, young with a sharp face and a habit of interrupting, took the floor. Who will stand at the head of this council? Silence. This very question was the main one. Kai had known that from the beginning, because each of those present wanted one thing, a unification in which he would be first among equals, and no one wanted to be merely equal. Kever was silent, because he did not have an answer that would satisfy everyone. It was then that Kai stood up, not quickly, calmly. The hall looked at him. Lord Kai of West Hall, someone by the wall said, not loudly, simply as a designation. Allow me a word, said Kai. Kever nodded. Kai looked at the table. The question is correct. Who will stand at the head is the main question, but it has been asked too early. Why? Selt asked sharply. Because first it is necessary to understand what this council will be. If it is a governing body, a leader with power over everyone is needed. If it is a body of agreements, not a leader is needed, but rules. The difference? A great one. A leader with power is one person who decides. It means all the others lose part of their power. That is exactly why the question who destroys the conversation before it has begun. Mir looked at him. And what do you propose? First agree on the rules. Specifically, what goes into the common, what remains separate. Trade routes, military defense, judicial procedure. 3 areas, the rest each on their own. That is a weak structure, said Selt. That is a living structure, answered Kai. Weak ones die quickly. Living ones last longer. The hall was silent. The envoys from the far north exchanged glances. Mir tapped a finger on the table. Where are you from, young man? West Hall before that? From where there was neither land nor name, and what are you doing here? Kai looked at the old man, the same as always. Going where it opens. Mir was silent, then slowly nodded, not agreeing with the proposal, simply acknowledging that the man had said something worth hearing. That was enough for the first evening. The next 3 days were difficult. Not in the sense of danger, in the sense of that special weariness that comes from conversations where every word is weighed. The lords talked, argued, dispersed, returned again. Kai participated in every conversation, but did not speak in all of them. He knew how to sit quietly and listen, knew how to ask a question that moved the argument to another place. Reyna turned out to be his constant interlocutor during breaks. Mir does not trust Kaver, she said on the second day. Too old a history, I know, but he hears people he respects. Whom exactly? You, if you speak with him directly. Reyna looked at him. Why do you think so? Because you have managed Kever's eastern estate for 7 years. Mir knows that. Such men trust practical people more than political ones. You are asking me to speak with Mir. I am not asking. I am sharing an observation. Reyna was silent for a while. You always do this. Do not ask share an observation. It is more honest. Or more cunning. The difference? Asked Kai. Reyna smirked. I do not know yet. She spoke with Mir that same evening. On the third day, Mir for the first time stopped objecting to absolutely everything. Kai spoke separately with the envoys from the far north. Not on Kever's assignment on his own. He found the senior one, a tall, silent man named Oiden, in a small hall by the eastern wing. You are observing, said Kai. Oiden looked at him. That is my work. What do you see? People who are afraid to lose more than they want to gain. Exactly, and you are different. In what way? You are not thinking about your own land, you are thinking about the system. Kai looked at him. What does the far north need? A road, answered Oiden simply. A safe road through these lands. Right now, every year we lose people on the passes and in other people's conflicts. If the council agrees, will the road be safe? If it agrees correctly, yes, Kai thought. What can you offer in return? Oiden took a small bundle from behind his belt, unwrapped it. Inside was a map, old, on leather, with routes that went through the mountain range, routes that were not on standard maps. There are passages there that no one in the south knows, said Oiden. You can go through them in winter. This changes trade. Kai looked at the map. This was more than just a road. This was a new resource. If I present this to the council, said Kai slowly, they will see not just an alliance with the far north. They will see benefit. Exactly. Why are you showing this to me and not Kever? Oiden looked straight. Because Kever thinks about power. You think about how to make it work. That is not always the same thing. No. But right now, the second is exactly what is needed. On the third evening, Kai asked to speak again. This time after dinner, when people were full and a little softer, he told about the conversation with Oiden. Showed the map with Oiden's permission. The hall became different. Not because everyone agreed at once, but because something concrete appeared. Not an abstract unification, but roots that change trade. Money that can be counted. Benefit that can be explained to people back home. Mir asked, is this real? Real, answered Oiden. Do you believe him? Mir looked at Kai. I believe the map. It is old and precise. Such things are not forged. Mir was silent for a long time. Good. I am ready to listen further. That was the turning point. By the end of the third day, there was no full agreement. Kai did not expect it. Such things are not decided in 3 days. But there was something else what had not been there at the beginning. 6 of the 8 lords signed a preliminary document. Not an agreement, an intention. Readiness to continue the conversation. To meet again in 3 months with concrete proposals in 3 areas: trade, defense, court. 2, including Selt, refused to sign. But they did not leave with hostility. They simply waited. That was also enough. Oiden shook Kai's hand in farewell. You did what Kever could not do. What exactly? Showed people the benefit before they began to fear the losses. That is not difficult. For most politicians, it is very difficult. Kai looked at him. Will you return in 3 months? Yes, if you will be there. I will. Reyna caught him at the stable when he was saddling his horse. Leaving at once? Darren is waiting. She was silent for a while. You understand that this is only the beginning? I know, and that they will pull you in different directions. Kever wants one thing, Mir another, the envoys a third. I know, and you are not afraid? Kai tightened the girth, thought, no, I am used to the road being difficult. Where does such calm come from? Kai turned to her. I began with a stick. Reyna looked at him. What? A long story. Are all your stories long? Only the good ones. Reyna smiled slightly for the first time in the 3 days Kai had seen her. She smiled without irony. Go, she said, but return in 3 months. I will return. He rode out of the gates of Kever's castle on a frosty morning. The road was long. The snow lay evenly. Darren met him at the door. The old man looked better than Kai had expected. Winter had not broken him. His eyes were alive, his posture straight. Only he walked more slowly. Tell me. Kai told everything, without omissions. Mir, Selt, Oidon, the map. 3 days, the preliminary document. Darren listened silently, then sat for a long time in silence. Did you take the map? He finally asked. A copy. The original is with Oidon. Good. What do you think? I think you did more than someone with a name and land 3 times larger than yours could have done. Why? Because you have no fear of losing. In people with old names, that fear is enormous. They protect what they have for so long that they cannot move forward. And I have nothing to lose? Darren looked at him. You have enough to act, but not enough to fear losing. That is a fragile state. Use it, Kai thought. It is not eternal, no. When you have more, you will begin to fear the same as they do. If you are not careful, how not to lose this? Darren grinned. Remember where you started. Sometimes it is useful to keep something simple with you. Like a stick? Like a stick, agreed the old man. Spring came to West Hall gradually. The snow left the hills slowly, leaving behind damp, dark earth and the first greenery. Kai worked. The land required attention after winter, the mill, pastures, contracts, people. Every day there was something concrete, not politics, not big plans, just work. He understood that he loved this. Not in the sense that he liked it, but in the sense it was right. When you see that the repaired bridge works, when you hear that people in the southern village are pleased with the harvest, when Vald, the neighbor with whom they repaired the watering place, waves his hand when meeting on the road. Small things, of which the large is made. This was exactly what Darren taught, not through words, but through his own example. The old man went out into the courtyard every day, spoke with the servants, took an interest in specific matters. Power for him was not distance. It was closeness. People do not respect those they do not see, he said once. They respect those who are nearby when needed. Kai remembered. A month later, a letter came from Bren. Short. The Duke asked when Kai would return to Torald. Kai wrote in reply, soon. There's a conversation that cannot be held through letters. Torald met him with a spring market, noise and the smell of the first flowers from the southern fields. Bren received him not in the workroom, but in a small garden by the residence. This was unusual. You have changed, said the Duke instead of greeting. A year has passed? Less. But it is not about time. Kai sat opposite him. Your Grace, I want to talk about the Northern Council. Bren looked at him without surprise. So, you have already heard. Kever, he said shortly. Not only. I was there. Participated. I know, I was reported to. Then you know that the preliminary document has been signed. I know. And you know that without Torald, this will be a northern club without real weight. Bren was silent. Looked at the rosemary bush beside the path. You are offering me to join a council that does not yet exist. No, I am offering you to join a conversation that is already going on. The difference, to join a council means to accept someone else's rules. To join a conversation means to influence the rules from the very beginning. Bren turned his head. You think well? You have already told me that. I repeat it because it is true again. He stood up, walked several steps along the path. If I enter this conversation, what will I get? Routes through the far north. A map with winter passages through the ridge. Trade that is impossible now. Is this real? There is a map. Oidon, envoy of the far north, is a real person with real power. Bren thought for a long time. And what do you want for this? Kai looked at him. Your presence at the next meeting. Personally, not through an envoy. This will change the nature of the conversation. A duke at a council of minor lords looks strange. A duke at the foundation of a new alliance looks different. Bren looked at him for a long time. Kai. Yes. Do you understand where this is going? I understand. And you understand that if this reaches the end, it will no longer be a council. It will be a kingdom or something very close to it. I understand. And who, in your opinion, will stand at the head? Kai did not answer quickly. This was a question for which he had no ready answer, because the honest answer was complicated. The one whom people believe, he finally said. That is evasion. No, that is the truth. Right now I do not know who it will be. I only know that a person with a title without trust will not hold it. And a person with trust without a title will be able to obtain a title. Bren looked at him for a long time. A very long time, then said, You are speaking about yourself. I am speaking about the principle. You are speaking about yourself, repeated the Duke, but not with accusation, with assessment. Kai did not deny it. I do not know, but if it happens, I'm ready. Bren snorted. An honest answer. He returned to the bench. Good. I will come to the next meeting. Not as a participant, as an observer. I will look. That is enough. For now, yes. They sat in the garden for a little while longer, silently. The spring sun was weak but real. Where do you get such confidence? Asked Bren suddenly. In what? That everything will come together, Kai thought. I am not sure that everything will come together. Then where does the calm come from? From the fact that every step I took opened the next one. I do not see the end, but I see the next step. That is enough. Bren looked at him. You began with nothing? With a stick on the road, answered Kai, literally. The Duke was silent for a second, then quietly laughed. That is a good story. It is not finished yet. Summer in West Hall was green and warm. Kai worked, rode, talked. Vald became almost a friend, as much as a stubborn elderly neighbor can become a friend. The mill worked well. The bridge held. The pastures in the east gave the first normal harvest of grass. Small victories, of which something larger is made. Darren weakened by the middle of summer. Not sharply, gradually, began going out less, sitting more by the fireplace. His voice remained even, but his movements slowed. One evening he called Kai. Sit down. Kai sat. I want to give you something. Darren reached for a small box on the table nearby. Opened it. Inside lay a book. Not thick, thin, in a leather binding. What is this? My notes. 40 years. People, decisions, mistakes. Everything I would have wanted to know earlier. Why do I need this now? Because you do not have 40 years for your own mistakes. Darren looked at him. You are moving quickly. That is good. But quick people sometimes miss things that slow people see simply because they have time to look. Kai took the book, felt its weight. Different from the ring and the knife. Not metallic living. Read it when there is time, without hurry. Good. And one more thing. Darren took another object from the same box. Small. Simple. A wooden figure of a bird. Carved by hand, old with worn edges. My father carved this, for me, when I was 5. Why are you giving this? Because someday you will have a moment when everything around will be large, important, heavy. Power, responsibility, decisions. The old man looked at the figure. In such a moment it is useful to keep something small and simple in your pocket. To remember that the most important things do not require great complexity. Kai took the figure. It was warm from Darren's hands. Thank you. Do not thank me. Darren closed the box. Go to sleep. Tomorrow we rise early. Kai stood. At the door he turned around. Lord Darren. Yes, I will not forget where it began. The old man looked at him. I know. The meeting at the end of summer was different, because Bren came. When the ducal cortege entered the gates of Kiever's castle, the hall became quieter. Not from fear, from understanding. This was no longer an internal conversation of lords. This was something larger. Bren entered the hall last. Sat not at the head of the table at the side. A deliberate gesture. I observe, not lead. Kiever opened the meeting. 3 proposals on trade, defense, court were read out. Mir objected on details, but not in essence. Selt was silent most of the evening. Oiden set out the conditions of the far north briefly, clearly. Routes through the ridge in exchange for inclusion in the council as an equal participant. Then Bren took the floor. The hall truly went quiet. I came not to speak, said the Duke. I came to listen. And I will say one thing. What I heard for 3 hours is serious. Not romance, not old dreams. Concrete things. He was silent for a while. Torald does not enter this council today, but Torald is not against it. It sounded cautious. But in a room where sat people used to reading between the lines, it sounded different. Kai saw how Mir and Kever exchanged glances. How Oiden nodded almost imperceptibly. How Selt for the first time in 2 meetings took a pen. By the end of the evening, Selt signed the common document. Now all 8. Plus the far north, plus the invisible presence of Torald. This was not yet a kingdom. This was not even yet a council with real power. But it was a chain whose end Kai still did not see. After the meeting, Reyna found him on the porch. They stood silently for several minutes. "You understand that now this cannot be stopped?" she said. "I understand. And you were going toward this." "I went where it opened. That is the same thing." Kai looked at her. "You think I planned this from the very beginning?" "No," answered Reyna. "I think you did not plan it, but moved so that each step opened the next. That is rare. Not the end yet." "No." She looked at him. "But do you already understand where?" Kai thought. "Where it opens." Reyna grinned. "You always answer like that." "Because it is true." They stood for a little while longer. Beyond the castle gates, the night wind rustled. Somewhere in his pocket lay Darren's wooden bird. The ring was on his finger, the knife on his belt. And somewhere at the beginning of this whole story, a small piece of wood on a forest road. The stick he had stumbled over, which he had picked up out of anger, and which had led him here.